Danske, a German volunteer who's built many, many tools that we all use. By the way, fun fact, he also wrote the first version of MediaWiki, the wiki software. He wrote the very first version. Nothing of that survives. It's been rewritten several times by now, but he's a long-time volunteer who's done much for the movement. And he wrote this tool that is built over Wikidata. It takes data from Wikidata and presents it in a different way. You may have noticed that the user interface of Wikidata is not the world's friendliest thing. It's basically just a bulky table with weirdly placed buttons. I don't think it's a very good interface, frankly. But you can build your own. And that's what Magnus did. And let's take an example. Let's take an item called Q42. Just a random number. Q42 happens to be about Douglas Adams. Does anyone know Douglas Adams? The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's a funny British science fiction book where the number 42 is particularly significant as the answer to life, the universe, and everything. But anyway, as you can see, this is a different display from Wikidata. It also knows how to say Douglas Adams in many, many languages, and it can tell you that he was a British screenwriter, novelist, comedian, playwright, blah, blah, blah. He was born at this date in Cambridge to Christopher and Janet. He studied at St. John's College. His field of work included comic science fiction. He worked for BBC. This is all coming from statements in Wikidata, but he's programmed something that displays it in a bit more palatably. He died of a heart attack. Wikidata knows what he died of. He died of a heart attack. He was buried in Highgate Cemetery. Resonator shows you his parents, his siblings, his children, and all kinds of other properties. It shows you his photo. It shows you a timeline for him, right? So you can actually go back and forward in his time. Do you see that? I'm dragging it. Do you see it? So this is a timeline that was programmatically generated by Resonator. Resonator just took all the dates that are mentioned in the Wikidata item, born, won an award, graduated university, whatever it is, and put it on a timeline. It's just an example of the kinds of things you can now do with programming based on the data we collect in Wikidata. Photo of his gravestone, a bunch of IDs, selection of photos from Commons. It just brought those photos for you already from Commons, etc. Okay, so that's the Resonator. It's a nice tool, and you can ask Resonator to tell you about anything you like. You can just type anything else here, like data. Remember, I promised you one of the first two problems that Wikidata solves is the problem of inflexible lateral querying of Wikidata, of Wikipedia. And so let's see the power of Wikidata through queries. So the site you want to know is query.wikidata.org. Query.wikidata.org. Now, this site is allowing you to run a query expressed in the Sparkle language. Sparkle is a standard language for querying linked data. Wikidata is not the only linked data database out there, and people have already created a language that is semi-programmatic that is used to query linked data. Folks in the back, if you want to talk, please go outside and talk. Okay? So Sparkle is like SQL, if that means anything to you. SQL, SQL, the language used to query databases. It is designed to be similar to SQL, so that if you know SQL, it'll kind of make sense to you. But if you don't, you can just learn Sparkle. You don't need to learn SQL for that. It's a little intimidating at first, but I assure you, it's possible to learn. And there are examples. And once you learn it, you can get everything Wikidata knows. And as you saw, that's quite a lot already. Now, the important thing is, Wikidata will tell you everything it knows, but no more. It can't tell you what it doesn't know. Like I said, until now, it didn't know that Dr. Pater was a professor. It couldn't have told you that. Starting now, it can tell anyone that. By the way, even if he doesn't speak English. He can query in Punjabi and still get a result from my inputting of his being a professor, even though I don't speak Punjabi. We can collaborate through those numerical IDs. And so, consequently, the more data and the more links Wikidata has, the more useful it becomes. It is already extraordinarily useful, but in 2, 3, 5, 10 years, it will be amazingly more useful because it will know so much more about so many more things. So let's look at a query, for example. This looks like this window here. And this is a fairly simple query. And let's try and walk through it. Okay? All it says is, please select for me all items where property 31, remember, Wikidata thinks in numbers. So I want all the items where property 31, which if you hover over it, the query service helpfully translates for you. Property 31 is the instance of property. Remember where it said instance of human, or instance of river, instance of like what kind of thing it is. So give me the items where property 31 has the value Q146. And Q146 is a cat. Like cat. The item cat, the animal. Not any particular cat, just cat. So every item that has the property instance of with value cat. In other words, I'm telling Wikidata, give me all the cats you know about. Now, what cats does Wikidata know about? Well, there are a number of famous cats, notable cats in history, right? Some of them are imaginary, like Schrödinger's cat. What? Yes, Shiva's cat, and there's now in the news in 10 Downing Street in London. There's a official Prime Minister's office cat, apparently. So some Wikipedians have written articles about a number of cats, and if you run the query, if you just run the query here, you will get how many? 62 results. 62 results. And the results are, as you can see, Muessa, Orangey, Mrs. Chippy, Kathmandu, Oscar, Dama, Dewey, read more books, Socks, Nora, Humphrey, Wilberforce, India, etc. These are all cats. If you don't believe me, you can click through to the Wikidata item. So let's click through to this Wikidata item. And we discover that there is a cat named India, owned by the US presidential family, Bush family, President Bush's family. Apparently, I didn't know that. Apparently the Bush family had a cat named India, and because it is the cat of the president, it was not notable enough to have an article written about it. Okay? But label is India, not India parentheses cat, as we would do on Wikipedia. it's just India, because that is the correct name for this thing, this cat. His name is India, his name is not India cat, right? And that's why we need the description line, cat owned by, etc. By the way, I remembered now that I wanted to show you the language effect. So this is, we're back in Dr. Potter's article, and I want to show you what happens when I change my interface language. Okay, I'm going to change it from English into, what shall I change it into? I shall change it into Punjabi. And I hope I can change it back. Okay. Ta-da! And now, okay, don't panic. Going back to the article, see what happens? Now, this article is not Surjit Pathar in English, it's, I can only guess, Surjit Pathar in Punjabi. Do you see that? So the label that is shown is according to your interface language. And even more than that, as you can see, this says English in Punjabi. These are the labels for the names of languages. Remember, before it said German, French, Hebrew. It said Hebrew in English. The name of the language was in English. Now, my Wikidata is in Punjabi, so the names of the languages are in Punjabi. And the names of the properties are going to be in Punjabi if someone had translated them into Punjabi. As we can see, this first instance of is special because it's so important. It's displayed in English with Punjabi on the side, you can see. But all the other ones, not all the other ones, some of them are displayed in Punjabi. P19, I don't remember what that is. Can anyone read that?
Date of
This? Date of birth?
place of birth.
Place of birth. Place of birth. Okay, place of birth. So you see, the property name is in Punjabi, the property value is in Punjabi. Remember, the property as far as Wikidata is concerned is just 19. It's just a number. But it knows how to say property 19 in Punjabi and in Hebrew and in English so that we can all use this system in our own language. And it fortunately knows how to say that place of birth of his in Punjabi. It probably doesn't know how to say my place of birth in Punjabi because I'm guessing my hometown, nobody has taught Wikidata how to say it in Punjabi. But if I tell you and you type it into Punjabi, then for any value ever in Wikidata mentioning my hometown, whether it's someone's place of birth or death or, I don't know, place where notable event happens, if you browse Wikidata in Punjabi, you will have my hometown in Punjabi. So what I'm saying is you only need to teach Wikidata once how to say the name of an item or a property, just once. So someone once taught Wikidata how to say place of birth, and now wherever we display place of birth, it will be in Punjabi. When I gave this workshop in Delhi last year, Dr. Manav was there from the Punjabi community, and almost none of the properties had Punjabi labels. And she sat there and translated some 20 or 30 of the most common labels, like father, date of, maybe she translated the date of birth. You know, and from that moment on, Wikidata can speak Punjabi about these properties. So again, you can all contribute to making Wikidata more useful in your own languages. By the way, we can click through to this, to the property. We haven't done that yet. If we click through to the property, we come, you see, what we are now in is not Q something, it's P something. This is the property page. Okay, it's the property page for the property date of place of birth. And as you can see, it knows its own labels, right? The English label for property 19 is place of birth. You know, the German label is Geburtsort, etc. Now we can actually see, if we look at the history, if we can find it, we can look at the history of this page. Remember, it's a wiki, so we have revision history, of course. We can look at the history of this property page and see who added, let's make sure we have enough, it's like 500 revisions. And we can actually see who taught Wikidata how to say place of birth in Punjabi. So just search for EA, and it was someone named Gurbakshish Chand. Okay? So, like any wiki, if you're curious about who did what, you can actually go to the history and find out. And of course, everything you expect from a wiki, diffs, reverts, undos, blocks, doc pages, everything else is available to you. Okay, so that was just a demonstration. And I guess it's too complicated to teach my computer to type Punjabi right now. But I hope you understand, just like I taught Wikidata some new things about Dr. Bakr, I could go to one of those property names that isn't available in Punjabi yet, go to the property page, hit edit on the labels, type the new label in Punjabi, and that would be the last time Wikidata needs to be taught how to say place of birth in Punjabi. So that is actually one huge thing you can do if you speak another language beside English, is to go over the, I don't know, 500 or 1,000 most common properties and make sure those are available in your language, because just translating those would enable a display of a Wikidata item in your language, where the fields at least are in your language, even if the values could be anything in the world, could be anywhere. Most of them will not be in your language. Questions?
Yes. Yeah, now just coming back to the same question I asked before, is the language level itself is a quantity, part of item that can be connected to its original? For example, Chandigarh, the Wikipedia page for Chandigarh, if that was a part, that was an item, you could have connected to the actual city Chandigarh to the Wikipedia page in Punjabi as an item.
Yeah.
That would be defined as an enterprise property.
No, Wikipedia pages are site links. They're a different animal. So remember, at the bottom of every Wikipedia, of every Wikidata item, there are links to Wikipedia. So there's like a special place for linking to Wikipedia.
Is it possible at some time?
But it's not a property. It's not a regular property.
Is it possible at some time keep a vector, like a new kind of item that can be connected to this? Because this will change the
But why? Why do that?
Yeah, it will have a dramatic after effects. We can have a lot of better possibilities with that. For example, I was mentioning the other day to you, I wanted to address the Punjabi label, Punjabi string. That is for
that's a different thing. You don't need it to be an item to be able to pull it. We need to add a feature that will allow you to specify a custom language. Yeah.
Is it possible?
Yeah. It is possible, not today. It's possible to program.
Yeah, we will request you to consider that.
Yeah. Well, I don't make decisions about Wikidata. But so if you're serious about it, you really want it to happen, go to Wikidata, propose it on the wiki. They are actually very responsive. The German.
Not to the tech IRC,
No, not the IRC, to the project chat. I am sorry you met an asshole on IRC. It happens. Yes.
I would like to ask that is the presence of English description the prime factor in connecting the articles? For example, some time back I had written one article on one guy by name Abdullah Muslia. He is from Kerala, on the Urdu Wikipedia. And as far as my knowledge goes, no article was created on the English Wikipedia around that time. Then when I searched Wikipedia, I found that one article is there on Malayalam Wikipedia with description in English. So this was helpful for me in connecting the two articles. So my question to you is the description and other things being present in the one particular language about one article only the basis for connecting other ways of knowing whether the article exists or not?
The description is not at all a basis for knowing whether it exists or not.
No, see what happens is when somebody creates one article in maybe let's say one language.
Yes.
So,
Most people today, if they are the first to create an article in any language, if they're not aware that it exists in other languages, most Wikipedians today don't know Wikidata, and so they don't go to Wikidata and create a new item.
That again is a big problem.
It is a big problem. So I'm hoping that you will start creating new items. I haven't shown it actually, but you can just go to Wikidata or click create item, type a label, type a description, that's it. You have an item. You can start adding properties.
No,
It's super trivial.
For me,
But a lot of people don't do that. And so topics that are likely to only exist on your wiki or my wiki sometimes don't have a Wikidata entity and so are undiscoverable. It is a problem. Well, you write it in Urdu and I never find out about your article and you never find out about mine. Yes, there is a risk of duplication. Kartik wants to add something.
So we solve this problem. When you translate the article and publish the article, the Wikidata link is automatically added between the two articles.
That's right.
And there is even bot which runs and adds the title of all the Wikidata items of the similar to like the title of the Wikipedia article. So if you also request that, that can be also done for you. So that is also useful when you search the Wikidata item using the queries.
So my experience is that particularly Hindi and Urdu both languages is people had created articles. There were articles in English Wikipedia. So let's say 3 or 4 years had passed, but probably the bot could not interleave the article. It had to be done manually.
So let's quickly link your new article via Wikidata to the article you were translating from and all the others. That reminded me of another thing I wanted to show you, which is another use of Wikidata. And this is the, does anyone know what EO is? What Wikipedia this is? EO, the language code EO.
EO, Esperanto.
Correct. It is the Esperanto Wikipedia, right? The constructed language that is meant to be an international language. It's a very small language of hobbyists who speak Esperanto. And because it is a very small wiki, they were interested in experimenting because they are missing a lot of articles. When you search Esperanto Wikipedia for an article that doesn't exist, it tells you that it doesn't exist, but also tells you we don't have an article in Esperanto, but we can auto-generate for you a summary, a machine-generated summary in Esperanto based on Wikidata. You understand? So I went to Esperanto Wikipedia and I typed in the search box, maybe you can see this, you see I typed the name of our friend Dr. Pater, assuming that Esperantists have not yet covered him. I was correct. There is no article about him in Esperanto. So what I'm told as the search results, you see it says, you know, did you mean something else? And we don't have an article with that name on this wiki. Maybe you want to translate this. But then after that, it actually says, here's what I can tell you based on Wikidata. And this text here, you see that? This is automatically generated in Esperanto from Wikidata. And, you know, Wikidata doesn't know much about Dr. Pater. Maybe we can you suggest a topic that is likely to be well covered in Wikidata but unlikely to have been written about in Esperanto? I don't know, maybe Chandika? Maybe they don't have an article about Chandigarh. I had an article, Chandigarh, which is about Chandigarh. Okay. What about B.R. Ambedkar? Oh, they do have an article about it. Okay.
Search for Kadapa. K-A-D-A-P-A. D for dog.
D. M.
Okay, let's search for something different.
Majara. M-A-J-R-A. Yeah, maybe they don't. Aha! Yes, so they don't, and they have all these results for Majra from Wikidata. And you can click through to Resonator in Esperanto. The same Resonator will now show you everything it knows about the Mera mythical creature in Esperanto. But it doesn't know much. Anyway, this is a brand new feature. I think it was only released maybe a month ago or so, or 2 months ago. It's a brand new feature and it's very experimental. But again, it will become more and more useful as Wikidata knows more and as Wikidata gets more labels in Esperanto. Right? So, for example, if we make sure that Wikidata knows how to say all kinds of occupation names in Esperanto, right? Poet, translator, firefighter, politician, make sure all those words are available in Esperanto and Wikidata, then we can at least auto-generate that stub, that machine-generated stub on Wikidata, saying who was this person? You know, was he a politician? Was he a singer? Whatever. So that's an interesting use of Wikidata that, of course, is not going to be activated on English Wikipedia anytime soon, but is an interesting thing to experiment with for smaller wikis. Getting back to queries, we showed you one query that was simply give me everything that is a cat, right? Anything that is instance of cat. Very, very simple query, and we learned about all kinds of notable cats. But let's take a look at a more interesting query. This is an example. I can pick examples. Popular surnames among fictional characters. There's a question you can't ask Wikipedia. Popular surnames among fictional characters. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to present it with a neat little graph. So, let's try and interpret this. So I'm telling the query service, please give me the results as a bubble chart. It's one of the neat things that it can do for me. And then what do I want? I want you to select the surname and the count, like the total, where a person has instance of this Q number, which is fictional character. There's a concept on Wikidata called fictional character. Why do I need an entity for that? Precisely so that I can ask about it in a query. Okay, so give me all the entities that are instance of not cat, not mountain, they're instance of fictional character. So that line gives me all the fictional characters Wikidata knows about. And then I also want you to collect the property 734, which is specifically the field of surname. By the way, that's a separate property from the label. Okay, if I have an entity called John Smith, it still makes sense for Wikidata to have a property first name John, last name, surname Smith. Why? Because it's not always obvious, right? Well, for people who have names with 5 or 6 elements, it's not clear whether, you know, the first 3 are the first name and the last 3 are the surname, or maybe the first 5 are the first name and only the last one is surname. We shouldn't make assumptions. So Wikidata can be told explicitly, this is the first name, this is the surname. So this is what the second line here does. It asks to gather all the surnames of those fictional characters, and then just give me a list of them with a count for each. Group the results by each surname. Again, I'm not here to teach you semi-programming. You will need to look at a tutorial for the Sparkle language. I don't expect this to make perfect sense to you, but I hope you can kind of follow. And when we ran this, you see we get this nice little bubble chart where we can learn that the name Frost and Forest and Harper and Stewart are significantly more popular among fictional characters than the name Ben, Heck, Cran, Gate, Loopy, and whatever. And of course, remember, this is only as useful as the data that people put into Wikidata. So for example, if most of the people who taught Wikidata anything about fictional characters were English speakers, then Wikidata isn't answering what are popular fictional names in Hindi literature, because it doesn't know. Did you want to say something? Queries I wanted to show you, and instead show you something much cooler that is going to help you contribute to Wikidata. So this is just a fun query about whose birthday is it today? We can ask Wikidata, give me all the people whose birthday happens to be today. That's a pretty simple query. But let's move on to the Wikidata game, which I wanted to show. A lot of work adding each property and teaching Wikidata that this person is gender, male, instance of person, born in so-and-so, etc. But on the other hand, like I said, Wikidata is only as useful as what we taught it. So someone needs to do that. Someone needs to teach Wikidata about each and every human what their gender was. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to query Wikidata and ask things like, tell me about all the women physicists that you know. If I didn't specify about that physicist gender female, it wouldn't show up in the query. So our old friend Magnus, same guy, wrote a pretty amazing tool called the Wikidata Game. The Wikidata Game, which essentially allows you to make edits to Wikidata very easily and in a way that is fun. It's a tool called Wikidata Game. You can Google for it or whatever, or someone fixed it on Etherpad. This is Wikidata Game. You need to log in. Maybe you've seen this in some other tools. You know, it asks you to authenticate against your Wikipedia account. Have you ever seen that? Let me demonstrate that real quick. Should be it. But my internet is tired. It won't let you play before you log in. Just click log in and authenticate against your own Wikipedia account because it is making edits in your name. Okay? But here's how you play the game. You click, say, the gender game. Now, Wikidata Game shows you a single person that appears on Wikidata but doesn't have a gender property yet. Okay? Wikidata knows that this is a person, instance of human, but it doesn't know what the gender is. So all you need to do is click male, female, or not sure. Sometimes you just don't know. So this person, Shen Ying Jin, is a Chinese nematologist. And I don't know if that's a woman's name or a man's name. Do you? I don't know, so I click not sure. But how about Pandeli Zorgo Zhupa from SQ Wiki, which is the Albanian wiki. I don't know enough Albanian either. By the way, you can teach the game to only give you certain languages. In this case, I deliberately let it give me all languages because I want to demonstrate to you how international and diverse Wikidata is, but let's look for something else. Tagalog. Kakay Velasquez. You can also Google sometimes. Apparently a singer, and apparently a woman. But I wouldn't trust myself with that, so I'll wait for a language I can read. And here's another language I can't read, Basque. The Basque language. But Alno, I do know the name Alno. Alno is a man's name. Okay? So, with some confidence, I say male. Now, this is it. I just clicked mail. This tool went to Wikidata with my account, went to that item, added the property gender, value, male. But I only had to make a single click and I immediately get the next one. Right? So I will show it to you. I'll go to Wikidata and go to my contributions. Oh my god. It's in Punjabi. English. Latest contribution, do you see that, is to the article Alno Abadia, and I created the claim sex or gender with the value male. Do you see that? You can also see it as a diff, like any wiki, right? So the diff is I added property sex or gender male. So it's a super easy way to contribute. It's really fun. This was a little difficult because of the examples we got. Imre. Imre is a Hungarian name of a man. So this is a male. Luis is definitely a man. Dick is a man. Ahmed is definitely a man. You agree? So, male. This is Georgian. Can anyone read Georgian? I cannot read Georgian, so who knows. David is a man. Bala. I don't know. This is Azerbaijani. I don't know. So, you can pick languages that you know, languages where you are confident about, and you will get only questions that you can answer. Just a very quick demonstration of another kind of game, the occupation game. See, you get an article, a Wikidata entity that doesn't have the property occupation. Wikidata doesn't know what this person did or does. And in this case, it pulls out from the Wikipedia articles, it pulls out possible occupations that are mentioned in the Wikipedia article. But remember, you can't assume that is correct because the Wikipedia article could say he was the son of a physician, right? That doesn't mean the subject of the article is a physician. So I can read a little bit of Polish. And is this guy a physician? Yes, he is. This word means physician in Polish, and that's right after his years. So clearly he was a physician. So I can just confirm that, and it's being added. And if I look for the word neurologist, I can probably confirm that he was a neurologist. Arabic. This guy was a mathematician. But was he also a Qadi? You see that? The Wikidata Game is proposing to me to mark this guy as a Qadi. I don't read Arabic fast enough to tell you if this was a Qadi or not, so I'll click not sure. This guy was a conductor and a composer. I have enough finished for that. So I click conductor and composer, and bam, I'm on to the next thing. So I hope you understand. This, by the way, works beautifully on mobile. So you can load this on your phone or your tablet. I like to do it on the train on the way to work. I just click male, female, person, not person, and I made hundreds of contributions in a single train ride. just clicking right and left. Of course, like any other action on the wiki, you are responsible for those edits. So don't just, click nonsense that or things that you're not sure of, because you will be reverted, and if you do it again, you will be blocked. So contribute responsibly. But this is a really fun way to contribute to Wikidata. And I will tell you one little success story. Is he in the audience right now? I gave this Wikidata training in Chennai a couple of months ago, in May. Yeah, but is the guy who made all the edits here? He's around in a conference. I don't remember his name. But back then, I was talking to the Tamil community that was using Wikidata for InterWiki, like you all are, but really wasn't doing much more with Wikidata. I gave them the training, I showed them these tools, and many of them started editing Wikidata here and there, a few hundred edits. One guy, from April 2016 to today, made 200,000 edits. Balaji, that's right. Made 200,000 edits between April and today on Wikidata. So you should talk to him about how much fun it is. But really, I've shown you many ways to contribute. You can add labels, descriptions in your language and translate them. You can add facts, properties and values to things you know. You can extract those things from Wikipedia articles. You can play the Wikidata game. You really can contribute in many, many different ways.
Asaf, the
yes.
number one contributor Wikidata is?
I'm absolutely happy to show you more things, to demonstrate, to answer questions. Just find me around the conference or email me. If you want, my business card is here. You can take one and keep in touch and ask me questions. Let's go to lunch. Thank you very much. I hope you will consider editing Wikidata.